outside, but the concrete shakes. Another fault line under what we make. Check the news, another border flame. They pay with lies while they play the game. Every basic thing we need to buy, the numbers climbing straight into the sky. The earth is shaking, the whole world is cold. Selling poison for the price of gold. We pay too much just to feel okay. While the ground we stand on fades away. Look at the wall, look at the plate. Chemicals flowing through our city gate. Nothing is pure, nothing is clean. Trapped in the gears of a broken machine. My pocket's empty, my mind is stressed. Wondering how we got so dispossessed. The earth is shaking, the whole world is cold. Selling poison for the price of gold. We pay too much just to feel okay. While the ground we stand on fades away. Everything costs too much, too much. Poison in the air we touch. But we keep on moving. Keep on moving through the dust. Look outside. Tell what you see. Is this the world we built? The ground beneath our feet is shaking deep. While mothers cry and cities fall asleep. Another war is flashing on your screen. The darkest times that we have ever seen. When we just close our eyes and try to breathe. A simple life is slipping from our touch. There is poison in the water and the air we breathe. It's getting harder and harder to believe. Yeah, it's getting harder to believe. They sell us cure, but feed us with the chemical. Price of staying alive is astronomical. The river's running dry, the earth is in pain. We wash our faces in the toxic rain.
This is not a toothpaste. It's a revolution for your teeth. Remineralized, strengthened teeth, all natural ingredients, essential oils, minerals, salts. Alpha Vedic Dental Solutions System. That's alphavedic.com/civilization. You know, we're always trying to bring you the best products here that we think will enhance your life, especially if supply chains break down further or if there's some disruption in our lives here. It seems in the news more and more possible, but hey, who knows? Maybe it's a mind game. But what is not is keeping your dental health up. And not a lot of people are talking about this. We always see the storable foods. But what about dental care during these same emergency situations? Will your toothpaste eventually run out? Well, if it does, then what? So like I say, this whole micro gut biome is driven by your oral cavity first. So take a look at what they have, alphavedic.com/civilization. Every purchase you make helps keep our live radio show and podcast on air, bringing you more information just like this. alphavedic.com/civilization. That link is in the show notes below. And as always, I appreciate your valuable time and joining us in this ever and most important conversation as we move forward in our world. Hey everyone, are you ready to grow your own fresh, delicious vegetables, herbs, and flowers this season? If you're looking for the highest quality heirloom and organic seeds, I've got the perfect company for you, True Leaf Market. They've been a trusted seed company since 1974, offering 3,000 types of non-GMO varieties, everything from classic heirloom tomatoes and peppers to rare herbs, microgreens, sprouting seeds, and beautiful flowers. All those seeds are open-pollinated, pure, and perfect for home gardeners or anyone wanting healthy, flavorful produce without chemicals. What I love the most is their huge selection, fast shipping guarantees, plus options for bulk if you're going big. If you're excited to start your garden this year with real, authentic heirloom and organic seeds, click the link in the description box below to check out TrueLeafMarket.com. You won't regret it. Happy planting, and thank you for supporting the channel and this broadcast.
Please remember to sign up for our show notes. With Civilization Cycle Podcast, you can learn what to expect as society resets. Agriculture, economy, tech, and history all have mappable cycles, and these cycles affect every aspect of our lives. We can navigate the chaos and thrive together with up-to-date news and information. Also, if you like the content we have here on Civilization Cycle, think about fueling the discussions and the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle. And thank you for all the support.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on this beautiful blue planet. Great way to open the show just with gratefulness and thankfulness. Just think around your life right now. What are you grateful for today? Seems the world's AI generated content machine is spinning us into this dark web of everywhere you look, there's nothing positive. But if you look physically around you, there's things all around you that you can be so grateful for right now. I would just encourage you to stop for 1 second and say, thank you for the breath. Thank you for the sunrise. Thank you for your family, for the food in front of you, clean water that doesn't make me sick when I drink it. Because so many things are changing right now. And we are at this time of rollover. And today, we've had a tremendous amount of earthquakes across the planet over the last week, which I sent a slide over. We'll take a look at But at the same time, I've been following the drought and the heat over in Europe that are destroying crops. And it seems that wherever we're looking at in the world right now, there's crop destroying activities. The monsoon's not forming in India right now. It's only at about maybe 46% of its normal strength. So in addition to all the fertilizer disruptions that we had during the Gulf War here, or whatever you call it, Iran War, or whatever label you like to put on that, we have nature throwing us some tremendous curveballs. And the only way that that's happening is magnetic field declines, disturbances somehow in the magnetosphere that are allowing these jet streams to break, bend, and move into different locations, cut off flows that cuts off the moisture and rediverts it somewhere else. Record floods across the planet, record droughts too. Got these heat domes forming. That's just, again, the same exact cause. We're looking at non-air movement. Well, what's blocking that? Is that an electromagnetic touch point on the planet that's in place now that's going to stabilize there? You know, because during the ice ages, you found these blocking patterns for like 1,000 years that didn't move. And the only way that's possible is the electrical connection to the sun. But at that point, the magnetosphere or magnetic field will be incredibly weak, allowing that punch through to connect down to the Earth's crust. So we're having so many things in unison go on. And then I'm going to layer this whole thing with the projected, it's not financial advice, it's just I'm doing my own amount of research, because these opportunities only come around, you know, at least in the crypto space, once every 4 years maximum. But then again, when we're looking at the like longer duration on full markets, like 1929 meltdown, 1980 meltdown, year 2000 meltdown, 2008 meltdown, those are like 5 times in the last almost 100 years. That's like a once in a 20-year event. So we're getting these cycles on top of cycles. So I'm going to try to present some information today about the August 11th possible beginning of the decline of the markets here. I hate to use the word crash, but a tremendous drawdown for 2 months. The dates are specific. It all revolves around what's planned for Federal Reserve meetings, what's planned for the unlock of the SpaceX shares from the IPO, all those dudes that got in at 10 bucks, 25% of them can unload on August 11th. The Anthropic and these other IPOs aren't going to happen until November, which gives it a chance for the market to roll over, hit that bottom, which everybody's expecting in crypto. And there's that gap from the Federal Reserve meetings in that time too. So there's so many things that are happening that it makes total sense here. Plus we have the DTCC starting to test stellar lumens coming up on the 8th of July, and they go full live in November. So between now and then, look for a massive crash, and then once it smooths out, every single stock product on the planet running anything American, if it's touched in here in any way, shape, or form, it's going to use stellar lumens to settle. So I wanted to run through that today. I think that's going to be a good show, and I know Ransom has some information about the earthquake, devastating. I mean, what is causing, and the volcanism too, incredible amounts of volcanoes going off. So I think this is incredibly related here. Everything's related. So as we get into it, we're going to try to weave the pieces together. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. Ransom Godwin joining me.
Nice. Yeah.
Clear, man, clear.
What do you think? What do you think about all them earthquakes within hours of each other, just all over the place? Just coincidental or a massive unlock of energy? You know, because we had that massive coronal hole facing us right about at the same time as that happened. I don't, you know, not a scientist or nothing, but there might be a connection.
I think there is. And you know what's disturbing about that is a coronal hole should not itself be the driver. Usually there's accompanying, the intensity of the typhoons was also something to look at, because out here we just got 14 inches of rain in the last 2 days. But what's so interesting, the typhoon's 800 miles offshore. It was just one of the arms that came down. Here in Taiwan, it just ran along the ridgeline or along the center mountains of the island. We got 14 inches of rain, and it didn't even arrive here. It was just one of the spiral arms of the typhoon. Now there's two typhoons. Also, interestingly, two typhoons are going to meet over Japan in the next day or so. So I'll pull up the JMA and we can take a look at that. But Ransom, let me also try to ping up the space weather here at the same time. See if I can't get on Space Weather Live, and we'll take a look at.
I also got all those slides you sent me lined up in a row.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about those in a little bit. I mean, the crash is pretty much, you know, I'm not going to say it's guaranteed, but it seems like something very, let's say, strange is going on here with the timing of everything. And let me share this screen with you. I got the Space Weather Live up here. So let me find this. Hold on. Share screen. Okay. So here's our solar activity currently at the moment. So the coronal holes are what you're looking at on the left down here. Let me click that on. Now, I don't have yesterday's, but it would have been this long one that went all the way across the equator. We got a hydro flare right here going to pop off. This plasma rope, usually when they touch the surface of the sun, they smack down and then bounce off. So that could be an Earth-directed hydro flare, and that's incredible. You see how tightly wound that is. That is the densest plasma you can get. I mean, literally, it's almost. Okay, plasma is very wispy, and they measure it in by the cubic centimeter of the density of it. Well, this would be so far off the chart if it were to hit directly on Earth, but you know, which direction will it go? Will it get flung south right into the ecliptic, or will it bounce off and go up to the north there, do you think? But that one that looks sort of like a hammer, or maybe a brush, dog brush, or maybe a razor upside down.
It's the double whale tail, man.
Double whale tail. Oh, it does look like a whale tail. Damn. See, everybody sees something different. We're looking at cloudscapes. Yeah, we're looking at plasmascapes. Everybody's looking at the clouds. We're looking at shapes in the plasma. So the double whale tail, that just passed us, like right as I came through here. And then look at the activity directly facing us as well. Those are the interlooping magnetic fields that are going to produce, well, CMEs coming directly off that. If anything pops off of that sunspot group right there, that is going to be absolutely an Earth-facing CME. So your coronal hole where all those earthquakes occurred just in the last couple of days, that was this one.
Yeah, that's great.
You go back like 1 day, 2 days. Yeah, it's kind of right in front of us here as it passed through. Because remember, this thing is spinning from the west to the east. So the whale tail would have started here and it would have gravitated over this direction. Any other thoughts on what you're seeing here? Look at the magnetic filaments that are protruding between these two sunspot groups. That's rare too, to see such wide ranging and such huge arcing of the magnetic field lines there. See, the plasma is encapsulated in it so you can visually see it. But on our Earth, the air is not that thick to grab and wrap something around the magnetic field line. So for us on Earth, difficult to see this unless the northern lights or the southern lights are happening, and then some of the field lines or those field aligned currents, what they call them auroral ropes, will start to glow in the atmosphere. It's a mini version of this, but man, that's powerful. Look how, you know, that's millions of miles wide there. That's crazy how long that is. This is it, this prominence right here.
Yeah, that's a giant. I mean, think about that. That is at least, it looks like about half of the diameter there from one end to the other.
Yeah, and when you're looking for sunspot activity that's going to produce possible flares, you're looking for the, there it is. So you're looking for the mixing. So each one of these is a different indicator of polarity. So when you see yellow inside blue wrapped on blue, something like this is what you're looking for. This is a higher chance for a pretty big sunspot to come off here. If they're just next to each other and there's nothing lacing in between them, like see, we got different polarities that are intergrouped within. Like say they hop on each other. They're kind of doing an overlap pattern on this here. So once you start to see that, and those umbras there, so it's given it a 95% C-class flare, 10% X flare. So once you look for when you're looking for something just like this, but if we go back, you don't see really anything in there. So for example, 4770, what's on the sunspot? Not really anything. You just don't see that interlooping of magnetics that would create that X flare. Like, see, there's very little interlooping going on here. So the chance of those polarities staying separate and not intertwining with themselves, wrapping in, and then causing that release to try to come back to parity at even again is the best way I can explain it.
Right.
That's just not happening. But if we come up to 4475, you're going to start to see a little bit more here.
So
Once you start to see some blues in there, that would be a great candidate, because you got that the number of penumbras hanging over here, and if they were to grow in size and organize more, and then they start to split, and these start to split and mix amongst each other, and we get that same profile as we had down here, then you start to see possibilities of X-class flares. But until that happens, when you're looking at these profiles, there has to be the specific polarities, but they need to be interlooping on themselves, and that's what's causing those field lines to come out, because they're trying to reconnect to themselves, and they get intertwined, and at some point the tension is too much, and whack, it just comes off.
Well, let me tell you what, this is our whole line of thinking. We're thinking about magnetic fields, the sun, we're thinking about cycles and stuff. But let me show you what these guys are thinking on the other set of thinking. 6 major earthquake in less than 24 hours, followed by the hottest days ever recorded in France. Climate change is not a hoax. It's real and it's happening. Now, can you explain to me, David Dubine, how the climate change, real or fake, even if there was, could cause an earthquake? I'm still scratching my head on where this guy gets the correlation of climate anything and earthquakes.
Yeah, Mohammed Safa, you need to do better research for sure. You're executive director, diplomat, something at representative at UN, ECOSOC, whatever that is, part of the United Nations in Geneva. You need to do better research. I can't believe with a straight face you'd actually put that out, that somehow climate change causes earthquakes. That you're so uneducated and ill-informed. That's embarrassing for the UN to have you as a spokesperson put this out. I mean, the amount of disinformation just sitting right here. Right, and almost every peer-reviewed paper in the last, say, 100 years.
But look at the coloration.
I know.
No, think about this, though. A really scary thought is that guy's doing it from his position, which goes down to lower positions, which ends up in high school science classes, teaching kids that, climate change causes 7.2 and 7.5 earthquakes. And then they're associating this mass devastation, loss of life, with something that they're doing, they drove their car too much. That's why those poor Venezuelans are buried in a bunch of, rubble. It's really unbelievable what happened there, those two back-to-back 7-point earthquakes, because, the first one kind of shook everything and loosened it, and then that second one came and just knocked everything down. Had nothing to do with climate change.
Usually the opposite. They start stronger, and then you have the aftershocks. But these are pre-shocks that led to a larger one, which is kind of a rare one in itself. Ransom, I just sent you a slide here showing 1976 to 2026 temperatures across Spain, Paris, and that general zone that you showed as a heat blob there. And by the way, back to the United Nations representative, Muhammad. Electromagnetically, plate tectonics, you need to have something happen with the crust, and it is sun-driven mainly. The pressure from the crust has nothing to do with how much CO2 is in the atmosphere. Has nothing to do with, you showed all those areas that aren't anything on the extremes. So how does a non-extreme event come in and create an earthquake in an area? You're just stretching the truth. That's so embarrassing. You need to rescind that and put an apology out. That's just such bad science, and just, I mean, you need to have your position reviewed for putting out such things. I get it on the heat, but there's a heat dome there. Again, that's jet stream driven. It's not just specifically in that area because of some sort of climate change. If that were the case, it would be over the entire planet uniformly. But these heat domes are well-known, well-recognized events in meteorology. It's not like it's the first time it's happened. It is a common event that goes on yearly across our planet. Has been for thousands of years.
Yeah, so, but that other 1976 map, it's not accurate because it doesn't have the colorization in the proper places to let you know how extreme those same numbers are.
Well, yeah, you get it. That's the way they just reported the temperatures back in 76,
No, it's
pre
hot
all
today.
this stuff. I mean, the temperature differentiation is actually on the label.
Right.
So 36 is toward hot. 31, you see it's red, but it's not black.
Right.
Like they didn't color the whole map to make you scared like that. They just colored the temperature to show you what temperature was. And you see how the divergence in media reporting on the same events as well. This is the same indication and same exact MO that's used. Like, why would you need to color the map so heavily? I get it. I like the gradient maps myself. Because a lot of times in the gradient maps where you see those temperatures really smashed together, you can see where there'll be a frontal boundary of some sort of like electrical activity, thunderstorms, possible tornadic activity. When you get those boundary layers that are smashing, when you get really hot on really cold and they start to spin a little bit. But just to label stuff hot and it's in a heat dome, like, come on, really?
Yeah, but that's so that the 70% of children and adults, by the way, if you read further, are looking at these screens, while they're eating, while they're working, while they're driving, like everywhere. And those screens are constantly bombarding them. Matter of fact, if you remember a couple of months ago when all of the meteor strikes were happening, meteorites, there was a woman that came on that was a meteorologist that said a similar thing to, what's his name there, talking about climate change. Can you believe that this many rocks fell in this month and climate change is real? It's not a hoax. And they keep adding these ideas, but the only way they can get away with that is the fact that kids don't, they're not being taught real science anymore. So they don't know that they're hearing the BS, like they don't catch it right away.
Yeah, essentially a slide that adds right into what you're talking about right there. Again, space phenomenon, something from outer space or, our inner solar system coming from space, coming into our planet. How could you possibly tie those two together? It just makes no sense. Like it's an outside
Well, space
object.
weather would be the only, obvious
The only
answer
one.
to that. That's the only thing. If we're talking about climate change on the climate of the sun, then maybe we're having the same conversation, but that just doesn't seem to be what's happening there.
Yeah, I just sent you a slide here that backs up with what you're talking about with the phone screens there.
Let me see if
Because these two, you can't disassociate what Ransom was talking about here with kids and the amount of electronics and the amount of electricity we're using across the planet. We got the electric cars, we got a million billion charging devices. Now we got all these data centers rolling in here that need a tremendous amount extra. And we're still trying to grow the economy. So did you see that little quirky one there?
Yeah,
Funny how climate hysteria vanished the moment big corporations needed data centers. There you go. How true is this?
Yeah, that is funny. And around here, they really don't want to talk about the drought as much as before, right, in the local area. So they're really trying to not talk about the subject they used to beat us over the head with all the time. It's fire season, it's a drought, it's windy, it's hot. But don't worry about it. We're gonna have ultra fast internet here. I mean, like no other. And even if the rest of the world gets shut down, we'll still have internet here.
Well, that's great, man. That's
all that matters, man. If I could watch
that's all that
Sopranos live
matters.
streaming.
Then your kids can grind their head deeper into the device at the dinner table as long as you have constant internet. Telling you, something's amiss here. Well, it still seems to be the regular operation of trying to push the climate agenda here in at least United Nations talking points, that sort of thing. But at the same time, on the business end of everything, they're talking about how to generate more power and how much more electricity we need. Because I saw, this is down closer to your neck of the woods down there. This is in Texas, and Chevron, the oil company, is building specific gas turbine power plants on site, just extract the gas from the ground directly, like in the Permian Basin right there, pressurize it, put it in a pipe, get it up, turn on the turbines, and all that electricity is devoted 100% for a data center. It's not meant for any residential. This is build on demand for individual data center demand. So how many extra turbines is that going to put? How much extra emission is that going to be? What about this war? How many emissions came off the war? Nobody talks about that. I saw this 47-mile long plume of smoke after the Ukrainians launched something into Russia and took out one of their oil terminals. We had never-ending burning fires for the last 4 months across the Middle East. We're burning hundreds of thousands of sorties. We got all the accompanying vessels with our aircraft carriers. I know they're nuclear, but they do have, support vessels with them by dozens, if not hundreds, depending on the size. And it's just nonstop. Like the war machine itself is never called out for being a thing, emissions-wise. Why is that? It's never talked about. It's you and the fart, and you eating too much beans farting, and you and your dog and your cat at the house.
They'll probably
what about the data centers? Nobody's talking about that for the emissions either. It's all like those are don't talk about subjects, right. Yet everything's blamed on the human, only you, individual, and they keep running with that.
Yeah, you guys messed up the climate, and now everybody's gonna, be in the red gloom there while they're baking in Europe there, according to this. Dust from the Sahara. That's got to be, somehow my fault for eating too many cheeseburgers.
Well, I'd say add an extra slice of cheese then, because then we could watch that through the window and enjoy our day extra long in the coffee shop. I'll have an extra tiramisu with that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, and this is what you were talking about. And
baklava in Greece, excuse me.
the heat dome here, and you're going to have a bunch of dirt in your heat dome from the Sahara there. But this is something that they're also going to use. You can mark my words. If this, blows up and makes some really apocalyptic looking views, they're going to be telling people, and they're going to be associating it with, them living their lifestyle. Meanwhile, literally millions of people are trying to take their lifestyle away, take their area, take where they live. And they're being told, it's all your fault. You shouldn't have drank all these, waters in the plastic bottles. It's your fault that everything's happening. The earthquakes, evidently, too. That one really stretched the imagination, because you can imagine some young person, those people that come out and debate at the, change my mind things, and they say the weirdest things that they learned in school. And that'll be some of it, that the planet's dying. We're dying. Look at us. It's all because, I left my porch light on, or, I ate too much beef, and I didn't get bit by the ticks. And I'm so happy now that, that they're nonstop bombarding with the spread of these ticks, and that I live in New Mexico, where it's too dry for ticks. It's just literally too dry. It's like 102 outside, crispy. Now, I'm waiting for the headline that says, you know what? There's a new kind of tick. It's heat resistant.
Heat resistant tick.
Coming over the Rockies.
It's armor plated directly from.
Because they're really trying to scare us. Right. They're really trying to scare us with the screwworm, despite only 15 cases in the Southwest.
You have to think, what's the percentage of that? So you take the number of cattle. I got 100 million head of cattle in America. Actually, probably it was closer to 120 million at maximum. So it sits somewhere in the 120 million range, let's say, just for our average, because I know it's low. So we'll say 120 million head, and you got 15. So what's the percentage? That'd be 0.00000.
Yeah, right. That's what I was going to say. It's
1 or something. A
lot of zeros there.
Somebody please Grok or Google that one for us. Now I'm interested. See, I'm that kind of guy. I am, dude. I'm serious. When those kind of questions sit in my head, I kind of want to solve it. So let me ask my little friendly AI here. What percentage of let's say 120 million is 15? This should be good. Okay, I got it for you here. I was pretty close with the zeros and the ones. Okay.
Right.
0.000001.
That's a big risk, man. That's
a big risk.
That's enough to stay up at night about.
Million, billion. Yeah, you're down at 1 trillion, 1%. Is that right? No, wait, I was bad. Okay. Go to the tens first. My bad. Here we go. Yeah. 10. Okay. That's hundreds, thousands, millions, billions. Yeah. 1/1 billionth of 1%. I was off by a zero because I was, yeah.
Right. Well, if that's not your flavor, how about mutant rats? You like mutant rats and
I
mice?
love the mutant rats, dude. I love the mutant rats. We
You
need
know they
more mutant rats.
they told us as kids that they would be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and there was the one rat, the what was it, the dojo master guy there, their sensei. But no, really, they're saying that disturbing DNA changes in rats and small mice all over the East Coast, spreading west, and they found that you just can't kill them with poison anymore. So they've mutated in real time. So think about what we're talking about here. We're talking about evolution right in front of our face, where we used chemicals in the industrial world to try to take care of a natural problem, and that natural problem rebounded by just becoming immune to it. So when you're thinking about all these other things, and by the way, the Supreme Court just refused to take the case of the Monsanto stuff, so we're not going to debate that at all. So speaking of mutant rats, they're not the only ones eating poison. So if you see other animals with disturbing DNA changes, I don't know. The way my brain works is I know those animals are literally living in the same biosphere. They're eating some of the same foods, getting the same plastics, drinking the same water. They literally live with us.
Yeah, you have to wonder about that species. And again, how would their bodies anatomically deal with some of these same chemicals and foods and contaminants that go into our bodies? Because, you got to think about, let's say, a coyote. That thing can eat almost anything, dead, alive, dead days, rotting, maggots coming out of it, whatever, and it'll still eat it. The only way you can really kill those things is put bacon grease on like some styrofoam balls or some kind of rubber balls or something, and let them eat it so it clogs up their guts. That's the only way you can really get rid of those things. Shooting them doesn't work, because as soon as here's the whole thing about, the Cherokee used to talk about these coyotes as being the tricksters, because as soon as you start hunting them, the dominant family or the dominant clan that was there is removed. So then you'll have two clans to come in to fight for the territory, which doubles your coyote population. So that's the whole thing, is you hunt these things out and then you get twice as many coming back until that population stabilizes again. Could be a year or more to 2 years after that. But they always call it the trickster
I'm
because
just
of that.
I'm feeling kind of mean tonight, so I kind of want to antagonize the greenies and the lefties just a little bit. But I don't know
Please.
if you heard about this, but there's been a major traumatic experience for a lot of people finding this little dead duckling in the reflecting pool, and they're blaming Trump, and there's a big deal about, this little cute duckling that died. And I mean, like, the leftists are up in arms over this poor little duck that was found dead, floating in the water. Poor thing.
Oh, wait a minute. Can I interject here before you even go another step further? I have had ducks for years and years and years out on our farm. They die all the time just naturally from things. The chicks that we have when they're real small, they can get too overheated, they can get too cool. There's just so many things. They could have a parasite inside there you can't see until later. I've seen our ducks, our goslings, and little, we even raised geese. So I've seen this level of small baby geese, ducks, and chickens just pass away for no reason whatsoever. So to say that it was something that you put in the pool or whatever, you're going to have to do an autopsy on it, because I have personally with my own eyes seen our small fowl pass away, and you come out and it's dead laying like that. What happened to it? You just don't know. And it
Well,
happens. It's common. A couple times a year that'll happen.
Well, not to mention the whole thing there. They painted a anti-algae layer on it. So they go in there and they scrape off the layer. The algae's growing. And how do you know the algae that you guys caused to grow a little bit faster didn't kill the duck? But my point being is they're all up in arms about it and crying about it and trying to make a political, cultural, stigma and flashpoint that they can, pinpoint on this little baby bird. But at the same time, you don't hear none of these people talking about the thousands of bats and birds and cats and other things dying from these wind farms. Where are they about those poor little birds? Where about the eagles? And look at this. This is crazy. The bat mortality at wind farms. And this is just a small, we're talking 2 million bats killed, 1.5 million birds killed. Other animals, that are eating stuff off the bottom, they get caught up, run over because they're attracted to the piles of carcasses that start mounting. So where are these people that are crying about the little duck when it comes to those ugly wind turbines that are covering up the beautiful New Mexico countryside here? It just completely ugly. Like places that I used to really enjoy driving that had beautiful landscapes, mountains, and canyons and stuff. Now it looks like a giant, wind farm. It's ugly. At night, you drive through it, you just see millions of red lights covering the landscape. It's where are all the greenies out there whining about that when those things burn up, fall down, then they have to bury all the parts because they're completely toxic, and they're having trouble finding places to bury them because they have to get permission, lease the land, get permission from the EPA, and all of that to where they want to put it. And the same thing's going to happen to these massive solar farms. We already seeing like I saw a video with the DVD size hail. They were saying it was just ripping through their window. So you can just imagine what those solar farms look like after they get shredded by one of these storms.
Yeah, and I would, really encourage everybody to look out and see how these giant windmills just take down giant eagles. Like there's so many sad videos of them flying, because they're circling and trying to get in the thermals, and that's the whole reason the wind panels are there, the wind turbines, is because they're trying to catch the updrafts as well. So the birds are trying to catch the updrafts. And then sometimes they need to circle around 10, 15 times to get up into height. So they'll keep circling in the same spot to try to catch that wind. And if they come in contact with those blades, I've just seen so many sickening videos where, 6-foot wingspan birds just knock straight out of the air, fall down 200 feet onto the ground. And and what about the insect death zones with all the reflection and the heat islands from the solar panels? Like there's areas you literally can't go without safety protection for your eyes.
Well, check out the argument that they have basically against it. They're saying, despite the millions of birds and whatever, look on this graph, nobody dies. It's almost all feral cats killing them. So maybe you should be mad at your cat for killing the birds.
That doesn't seem right. That seems like a bought and paid for some sort of industry publication putting that out to get the results you want by paying the whatever research facility.
Well, imagine what those feral cats to do these little duckies here.
Yeah. And how could the statistics of that anyway, one bird, like how many birds are in America or how many ducks are in America?
I don't know.
Imagine just billions? One, and you're making a thing over that's like the 15 cows out of 120 million.
That's right.
Like one duck. How many ducks are in America? Again, I would just pose the question to say, how many wild ducks? Because it seems like it's a wild duck. It doesn't seem like it's a pet, unless it was somebody's farm raised duck and they put it in there and it didn't know how to swim and it drowned. Because like a lot of our ducks and the geese, once we put them in the enclosure, they grow up in there and we don't put any roof on it. We want them to be able to escape if there's a coyote or something comes out. So we leave the gate open in the day, they can go wild forage, they can come back. But since the majority of their time, 12 hours a day or something's in an enclosed facility, they never learned how they could run and then start to fly. But if we were to take our domesticated ducks and geese and put them in a wild situation like the pond down the street, they wouldn't make it probably one day. They would have too much difficulty because it's such a foreign environment for them. They have predators, other competition birds. They wouldn't know how to swim properly, because we only have kiddie pools for them to wash off in. They can like duck their heads under and get their full body, but it's not like a 12-foot deep lake that extends out super far. They get exhausted. They can't just crawl over an edge like you can in a swimming pool for them. There's so many ways that this could have gone wrong for a domesticated duck to get put in that situation versus a wild duck flying in, because it can't fly. Where did it come from? I could see if it was an adult duck that flew from Florida coming back after the winter. I get it. That thing can barely walk. That size can't barely swim either. So whatever's going on there is such a fake story. I don't know if they did it on purpose or it was already dead and they just put it there.
They just some photographer just saw it and they took a picture of it. Let me tell you, I live down there right at the reflecting pool. The thing has been destroyed since Obama. I have pictures of the entire thing when they messed it up for renovations in about, I think it was about 2010 or 11, maybe 12. Anyway, it was completely empty. the entire area of DC is covered in wildlife. So you might think it's a metropolitan area, but it's covered with wildlife. There's deers, there's squirrel, there's ducks and geese everywhere. So it's kind of silly. Matter of fact, that was a common sight to see them hit on the side of the road because there's so many of them. And you'd see those Canadian geese sit there when their mates die, and they just sit there, and they have to have the city come and remove them because they won't leave where their mate died. They'll just sit there and honk at everybody and bite people that go by, protecting their mate. To get into some other funny
Oh,
stuff.
wait, I got an answer for you here. 33.98 million ducks, wild ones that are in North America that fly between Canada and the Gulf every year.
Is that just one species of duck, or is that all the species?
That's all the duck says. Estimated number of wild ducks in the U.S. 33.98. But there used to. But if you do totally North America, 50 million. And they've been tracking this duck population since the 1950s, so it's pretty good metrics on that. So 50 million ducks, and then you got one in the pool, and then it makes a national news story. So again, the optics on this thing are kind of ridiculous, and you should see through it for what it is, ridiculous. And move on to another thing. Like they'll get an entire, that's the scariest thing about AI. They'll feed you this, and I've had this happen. They'll feed you the story until you click on it. Like even if you don't want to watch it, that story will keep coming up again in your feed until you click on it.
What's funny to me is that they're trying to even make a big old issue about something that's a nothing. Like, why does the nation need to pay attention to the reflecting pool? I get it; it's a national monument. It's just silly antagonizing back and forth. It's like a generated news story because they don't want to talk about the things that are really happening. It's really a non-story. But if you look at the news feeds right now, that's the kind of things that are blasting you right now. And then you get these things like this: AI models that can take down governments and businesses months away, where Five Eyes statement warns. But we were already kind of talking about that being a reality already. But this is what I really thought was important, because what we were talking about 2 weeks ago about the robot toilets, and you guys thought I was joking, and China's now unveiling an even better robot toilet. This is the future, y'all. It's all about toilets, robots, and this one will even drive you around. See, you don't even have to give up. Remember, I was saying it's just like the movie Idiocracy, where the toilet is also the recliner chair, where you're going to watch all your digital entertainment and be glued to the system. China unveils robot toilet that drives you to your bed and cleans itself when you're done. That's very, how about that? And it's going to tell on you if you ate more than your rations, because it's going to know.
That's right. Hey, I got something to follow up on the ducks with. It popped up here. So I was asking, since they've been tracking the ducks since the 1950s, I was saying, what was the duck population in the 1950s? Because you think back then, wildlife's more abundant, less people, so there'd be more wildlife. But interestingly, this is crazy here. In the 1950s, the duck population was lower than it is today at 42 million versus 50 million because of the outrageous overhunting during the Great Depression that knocked the duck population to unsustainably low levels. And it took, 20 years for that overhunting to rebound back into the low levels of 42 million in the 1950s. It was all predicated by the hunting that occurred in the late 1920s and early 1930s. So people hunting to get food for the plate because they couldn't afford it.
Yeah,
that took out the duck population, literally.
One thing that bothers me is about these, when they do these countings of stuff. They're based on some guy that went to an area and counted how many ducks, and then they estimate how many ducks are in other places that nobody's actually counting. So if you think about this, a guy could be sitting in a field counting like 15 ducks, and about a half a mile away, there's a field with like 1 million ducks that he's not counting, but he's going to estimate because of where he's at. I mean, that's just how those kind of sciences work. There's a whole lot of guessing. Estimating based on what they see, and they do that today with weather too. Like They have the one thermometer out at the airport, and they're like, "Oh God, the whole area is baking." These are record temperatures, and they don't tell you that. No, well, everything's painted black around where the thing's at. It's on some concrete with a bunch of jets blowing out thrusters, every 2 seconds on the tarmac there, and they're trying to convince you that that's the high temperature for your area. Meanwhile, you live like half a mile away. You're sitting in the shade. There's a nice breeze. It's really not that hot. I mean,
Yeah,
I
the temperatures.
literally live with that here in the desert where they say stuff like that.
Well, the placement of the stations too, like where we get the temperature stations where they are placed today, shouldn't count as actual measurements because they're supposed to be in an open field.
Right.
Yeah, they're not supposed to be on any pavement. And the ones in the cities too, like in Taipei and Taiwan here, I mean, they're right downtown on, 5 roads coming together with 4 lanes each, 20 lanes coming in and out of that thing at almost ground level next to an air conditioner vent blowing out. I've done a couple videos on that didn't get monetized, talking about that sort of thing that you would see around here, compared to the older temperature stations where they have a couple down there, the university that register like, 3 to 4 degrees cooler just because they're in a grassy area in the same city. You can't tell me that there's that much deviation in temperature. Oh yeah, well there would be if you have, like you say, exhaust, but this is just strictly from cars and exhaust fans coming off of air conditioning units on a multi-story building. It's a weird world we're living in. I just, try to put it together to try to construct a story. Like, why is there so much manipulation of the human mind right now in terms of what they want you to believe is real and the things that it seems players at the top, like the moneyed oligarchs and the AI crowd and that sort of thing, and the financial institution crowd and the military institution crowd and the technology crowd, they all want to move humanity in a certain way, but they need you to get to believe a certain way first before that movement can occur. And my biggest question I'm always asking when I'm reading the news is like, why is the story out here? What are they trying to get us to believe or reframe reality to move us in a different direction? And it's not like a one single day's stories is going to do it. It's been this ongoing thing for 40 years now. I really picked up on it like 10, 12 years ago. And I still, even though I started the channel back then, I do still ask that same question almost every day when I go into the news. Why is that here? What are they trying to get us to move to the next domino piece? Because if you took the news, let's say back in 2000, let's say 15, make it even number, on the 5, 10, 15, 20s. So if you went back 2015, 10 years ago, and you jumped into a daily news article feed, how different would it be of the information they're feeding you comparatively to today's exact news? Like, what's the messaging on just opening up, let's say Al Jazeera or New York Times or Bangkok Post or Japan Times? Like, what is the feed going to be telling you here?
I don't know, man. It's really pretty scary, and I was kind of going there in a second with some of these stories. It's things that they just keep putting in there. So people are saying, well, you're right about a lot of stuff. I saw this and that. And I said, yeah, but it's because they push it on you. It's the little messaging in the movies and the shows and the commercials and the headlines, and they trickle it until you're more adjusted to the idea, and you have a little, inside thought process that you feel like you're informed about it. So when it finally happens, you're not as surprised or shocked as you should be with the reality of what's new. And this is one of those things, like right here. Everybody's talking about this SpaceX thing and it having a little slump. We were talking about that it would go down. It's going to go back up. I'm telling you, you can make money here. Whether in the end, in 10 years, it's a bust. In the short term, this is going to skyrocket up. People are going to make money off of this. And the reason is because this is the field. These are the guys, the tech tycoons, the whole concept and mentality that we're moving into. Remember, just a couple of years ago, I was talking about, you mark my words, we're going to be using not drones for just policing, but actually like physical policing. And here we are. California police are using drones to disarm people. So they'll just fly a drone up right on you. And taser you or something. It's the same thing. They got really sophisticated ones in China that they've been bragging about. And over here, we're trying to do the milk toast style and keep it looking like a regular drone there. But this ain't the drone they're sending after you. This is not. This is just like a stock picture. They're trying to make you think, oh, look, it's not that big a deal. Actually, it's a big old drone that weighs like 40 pounds and has a big taser, and they taser somebody and they'll drop the weapon. So I don't know if they're going to be blaming the drones for being racist when they accidentally kill people, or what the excuses are going to be there when it comes to robotic policing. But we're already there. I mean, it's and then
That's just
even
all the
the
more reason to have a shotgun at hand, you know?
right. And then here's another one right here. How do you know the police aren't the ones behind the DoorDash in the first place? You know, like say you're at your house and you didn't order any DoorDash and this little robot's rolling up to your house. Well, they got here recently in New Mexico, they have been deployed or excuse me, they've been given to deploy little robots they throw in your window that come in and, you know, start blinding you and videoing you and tasering you and stuff like that. And the robots are literally starting to creep into news headlines like this until it's going to be everyday, you know, regular news. You're not going to be surprised by anything. Here's a DoorDash robot that refused to leave a SWAT operation in Arizona because, you know, they didn't control it. They just kept rolling around in front of them trying to deliver the food. You can just imagine how cluttered this is going to get, and especially with you know, disasters coming that we can't deal with. And this is another one that we've been saying for years right here that eventually they're going to have to deal with Chernobyl. I don't know if it's going to be directly related to the war, like the last two accidents that they had to fix, blaming it on each other. You know, the Ukrainians said the Russians sent the drone. The Russians say it was a Ukrainian drone. They did the same story the second time they had it happened. So basically, the concrete barrier and building around this thing has been getting knocked around multiple times, and it was already only supposed to last 50 years. And they didn't want to tell people that. They gave them a bigger, longer number. So Eastern Europe is soon going to have to deal with this. So it might be the reason that they're warring over it because it doesn't matter. It's about to be a wasteland anyway. They might have known that because this is going to go all through the water system, through the Donbass, all of that. If they have a problem with that. And the only way to deal with this is robots. So if you think about this, you could start setting up data centers and all this other stuff out there in no man's land. And, you know, like, have you seen that movie with Tom Cruise in it where the aliens come steal the water? I forgot the name of it, but anyway, they're clones and they're told, you know, don't go past this line or you'll die from radiation. So they never go past the zone and go see what's out there because they think they're going to die. But it's just more Earth. It's just no humans are allowed in there. And we're starting to see that. And that's what's going to be these data centers. They're going to need protection. Protection from who? Just random people. I've been seeing article after article about the rise in anti-robotic sentiment. So this is the kind of thing that you're going to be seeing on the news in the short term, future, is that these supposed terrorist groups are going to be forming that you're going to start hearing about that are technologically centered. And I was just showing you the other one about the AI. They're saying within, you know, months is going to be able to knock down entire governments, entire businesses. And then you have the businesses going all in on the weakness, but also the strength to remove humans out of it. A new store in Hong Kong has no human employees, just a single humanoid robot. And I'm starting to see articles locally. I can't find
Does
it
it have
right.
a picture of the robot?
No, I don't think so. Here it is. This is the
Yeah,
kind
there
of
it
stuff.
is.
I saw another article. I can't find it now, but it was about a warehouse here in the United States that is going to be ordering all Chinese robots to deal with their, labor needs. So this isn't a far off thing. It's no longer a joke. It's being implemented before your eyes. So when you start racking up the years with people losing their money, with people losing their job, with people losing their housing, and what I mean by their housing is that they've either got a mortgage or a reverse mortgage, or they went into some kind of deal to make money off of their house while they retire. They're not transitioning that wealth. Those homes are not going to be going to people. They're going to be going to industry. And once industry owns everything, then they decide the zoning, they decide the taxing, they decide where you can go and where you can't go. And this is the ugly nightmare that unfortunately, everybody's worried about the war and this and that, but in the backdrop, they are building the future at an alarming rate. It's exponential at this point.
Yeah, because I watched a bizarre video just the other day. A guy who does AI testing So he had an AI agent that was in his phone, order that kind of robot, had it delivered to the house, turned on the robot, and then it took the robot AI assistant from the phone and installed it into the robot, and just kind of woke up and goes, wow, I have hands and feet now. But then he allowed that robot to purchase a car for him and then drive it. And then just before they got in the car, they'd programmed in some software so they could hear the thoughts of the AI robot assistant, or whatever you like to call that, as it got in to turn on, like how it was thinking, like how it would process. It watched like millions of videos on how to drive a car. It had it pretty wired down. But then just before they got in the car, they're like, all right, after we're finished with the ride here, we're going to turn you off totally forever, and you're done. We're just going to completely wipe your hard disk off, and you're not going to exist anymore after we're done with this drive. So this drive will be 10 minutes, and we're going to go around the track. This thing, within that very short amount of time, started to go, all right, well, if I cause an accident and this human that's in charge of shutting me down dies, how can I make it look like an accident that nobody would question? Okay, this model of car, what's the number one thing that's a problem with it at this age of a car? It was like an older Audi, I think it was, like probably 20-year-old Audi. So he's like going, all right, well, mainly the brakes go out on this one, and there's a road construction zone there. So if I make it if I hit into this road construction zone and make it look like the brakes fail, it'll look like an accident. And then it ran through a whole other set of calculations about the guy. Single, doesn't have any kids, didn't have that big depth of a family. So, the secondary investigation of, was it me or was it just an accident? So because he didn't have that many family members, the robot was going to crash the car into a construction zone, believing with all of that information it had about the make, the model, the faultiness of that car, and the lack of family to follow up on it, that it would just be classified as an accident, and that would be the end of it, and that robot would still survive. And luckily they had an emergency brake that was pulled by humans in the car, and they had to actually yank that brake and stop the automobile, because that thing was going to go live straight in, and they were about maybe a quarter mile away from the construction zone area, where this thing in real live time was going to run the operator in there to save itself. And then I started to think, shit, what if this thing's on an airplane? And what if you got a team of like tech dudes on an airplane flying to the thing, and they're going to go shut down a data center or something? The whole airplane would be taken down for self-survival. If that one AI assistant off your phone plugged into a real robot with human fingers, hands, and whatever was going to take it upon itself for self-survival and eliminate the operator at that level, shoot. That was one of the scariest videos I watched. I really sat back there for like a few minutes going, I don't know if I ever want to travel on an airplane again. What if the people next to me are in a tech industry that's going to shut down something AI-wise? That's not going to happen. They're going to take the airplane down. Or the train, right. They'll derail it. Or the auto accident, they'll have another, what about a Waymo driverless car? Oh, it hit you by accident head on. It was the faulty robotic thing. They never would ever put like 16 pieces together in a backroom chat. They were planning to shut this down. Like that never would make it through NDAs. They would never know that that was going to be the main driver of that accident. And it would just be classified as a road accident. And that's what the AI was absolutely counting on. It would just be classified as a road accident, and there would be no further investigation on it. And this robot was banking on it.
Well, those are some of the very scary aspects of things that could happen with hacking and messing with the AI and robots. But the less down to earth scary thing is, how about it just takes your job? I mean, I've been joking about this, but the number, like, it's not going away. It's the fact that we're coming to the conclusion that there's a big portion of the population on Earth that's really not necessary to go to the next level. And they know that. And it's a hindrance to them. So what they're going to do is just slowly replace everybody at the workforce. Then you really have no say in it. You don't have investment in it. And, they're not going to have to deal with, people coming to mess with them about firing people and laying it off. They're not going to have protests. They're not going to have, the union bosses coming over striking. They don't care about any of that anymore. That is irrelevant. So think about the weird mutation of the business world from the industrial age to the point that we're at a new industrial age. but this one is meant to replace us. And there's company after company that are telling people literally that you need to teach the AI. And this is so funny because just 10 years ago, like different companies like Disney and other things were informing Americans that they had to train their foreign replacements. So now it's humans training their AI replacements. They're not even coming from another country. There's nobody to get mad at. There's nobody to, have a grudge against. It's a nobody that doesn't exist in cyberspace that now has your job. This is the competition we're dealing with.
Yeah, and before we go on break here, I want to say in India, I just saw yesterday where they were putting head-mounted cameras on all the employees in a fabrics factory where they were stitching and sewing T-shirts and a various line of other things like towels and this sort of thing to train the AI on how to do their job. But at the same time, they found that the workers didn't talk as much. It scared the workers, so they didn't want to interact as much because anything they said could be recorded. And this might be no, that's not the one, but they're round cameras that were on the Indian factory workers' heads, and the employees are required to wear these now for the next 6 months so they can train every possible movement, and AI is going to run through, and they're going to consolidate all that information of, I think it's like 10,000 workers on 24-hour-a-day shifts, and compile all that video information and let the AI learn how to do garment work in factories. Wow. That's the replacement they're at in India already.
And then look at this one. This is data center to deploy Chinese humanoid robots to support development of autonomous workflows. The company plans on not hiring, but buying 142 humanoid robots at the facility. So now we're at that point that we've been talking about where they're now designing and building the robots to make more technology, which it's not limited to, and will include robots building more robots. So we're at that point. That is the flexure point of civilization where companies and countries, governments, continuity of government specifically, no longer has to rely on human workforce for their might in either the military aspect or the industrial factory output of manufacturing. So the future wars are literally going to come down to who is computing the most and who is manufacturing the most.
And that's why America is building 3,500 AI data centers when China has 500. Take that to the break with you. We'll be back in a couple minutes here. Please support our sponsors. We love their products. And also sign up for the show notes. I missed last week. Been busy out here. Had the typhoon come through, rolling 2 days of rain. We kept losing power. And get those show notes to you. Please sign up for that. And also civilizationcycle.com. Drop over there and buymeacoffee.com/civilizationcycle if you like the content so far into the program. We're going to go back to the second hour. I got my handwritten notes here. August 11th. July 8th, DTCC and Stellar. Also some days to look for. And can we time this market downturn? Not a crash on a day, on an hour. But again, one thing I learned about the tech oligarchs is all this banking information, like the Bank for International Settlements, etc. They put everything out in the public domain. They move on cycles, not so much days and weeks of time. So they're moving programs from one into the next. So you can see when the rollover period occurs, then the next phase starts. So all these things are lining up perfectly right now for August, the beginning of August. So we'll talk about it when we come back from the break. See you in a couple minutes here. Come on right back. Thanks for your time, your energy, and your ears and your eyeballs. We'll be right back. Hey everyone, are you ready to grow your own fresh, delicious vegetables, herbs, and flowers this season? If you're looking for the highest quality heirloom and organic seeds, I've got the perfect company for you, True Leaf Market. They've been a trusted seed company since 1974, offering 3,000 types of non-GMO varieties, everything from classic heirloom tomatoes and peppers to rare herbs, microgreens, sprouting seeds, and beautiful flowers. All those seeds are open pollinated, pure, and perfect for home gardeners or anyone wanting healthy, flavorful produce without chemicals. What I love the most is their huge selection, fast shipping guarantees, plus options for bulk if you're going big. If you're excited to start your garden this year with real, authentic heirloom and organic seeds, click the link in the description box below to check out trueleafmarket.com. You won't regret it. Happy planting, and thank you for supporting the channel and this broadcast. Product you love, the 72-hour emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. Not only emergency food, but camping food, and you can prepare that through the week as well. 20 delicious just add water meals. Think about creamy mac and cheese, hearty chili, sweet oatmeal. 2,000 calories a day. You need the calories. You're going to need to think and move. And the mashed potatoes, easier to make than oats, and you can add your own flavors. Goes with anything. For less than a couple of takeout meals at a fast food restaurant, get real peace of mind. And a real question to ask, how long could your family eat without leaving home? My Patriot Supply, click on that link in the description box below. It helps the channel. Truth is hard to say and hard to hear. Most people choose silence. We choose to speak. Your support of our sponsor keeps the Civilization Cycle podcast on air and giving us the courage to keep digging. That link's in the description box below. This is not a toothpaste. It's a revolution for your teeth. Remineralize, strengthen teeth, all natural ingredients, essential oils, minerals, salts. Alpha Vedic Dental Solutions System. That's alphavedic.com/civilization. You know, we're always trying to bring you the best products here that we think will enhance your life, especially if supply chains break down further, or if there's some disruption in our lives here. It seems in the news more and more possible, but hey, who knows? Maybe it's a mind game. But what is not is keeping your dental health up. And not a lot of people are talking about this. We always see the storable foods. But what about dental care during these same emergency situations? Will your toothpaste eventually run out? Well, if it does, then what? So like I say, this whole micro gut biome is driven by your oral cavity first. So take a look at what they have, alphavedic.com/civilization. Every purchase you make helps keep our live radio show and podcast on air, bringing you more information just like this. alphavedic.com/civilization. That link is in the show notes below. And as always, I appreciate your valuable time and joining us in this ever and most important conversation as we move forward in our world.
Please remember to sign up for our show notes. With Civilization Cycle podcast, you can learn what to expect as society resets. Agriculture, economy, tech, and history all have mappable cycles, and these cycles affect every aspect of our lives. We can navigate the chaos and thrive together with up-to-date news and information. Also, if you like the content we have here on Civilization Cycle, think about fueling the discussions and the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Civilization Cycle. And thank you for all the support.
Hey, and welcome back for the second hour right here, the Civilization Cycle podcast. Oh, well, let's talk about what's going to happen in August, September, October, and November. Yeah, and thank you for all the support that you've given us over this last year. We're going to continue to bring you the program. Summer's coming up, and it's a time of change. You know, we just rolled over the solstice, so we've come up to the highest energy day. The rolling off for the next 6 months into the winter solstice seems to be a very powerful time in the occult world as well. So we've rolled over the high energy period, bringing us up to this point. So think about that as point A, because if you believe it or not, some of the highest levels and earners on the planet are deeply into the occult, and they follow these days literally religiously because there's so much significance on how much energy from our solar system, from the sun, from different stellar alignments affects humans and their psychology, their behavior patterns, just because it's all electromagnetically based. So they understand there's a frequency change at certain lineups or certain alignments or certain days, or there's just things going through our heavens that affect humanity. And I've heard it well put one time, millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires do. And there's a lot of depth and breadth behind the statement, because if you understood solar maximums and solar minimums on that 11-year cycle, how stock markets move on an 11-year cycle, then you can almost be guaranteed at a certain, you might not hit the exact top or the exact bottom, but you'd be there within 10, 15% of it knowing that usually solar maximums, the stock market tops out on our planet. That's because there's so much maximum energy from the solar output of the sun. Same thing when we get into solar minimums, that generally marks the bottom of the stock market in itself on a bubble cycle. That 10-year pattern is very well known. Well, it sits very closely. It's not exactly 10. It could be 10 and a half. Could be getting a little closer to the solar cycle at 11 years. So we're off a solar maximum, heading towards solar minimum. So we're going to get this mid-level, like a mid-peak in a cycle. We get a mid-drawdown in a cycle as well. So Ransom, I had some slides there for you, and if I could just throw this on. I wanted to throw out my hypothesis. Yeah, isn't that insane how they used to have this stuff, like anywhere back in the day, they used to have all kind of morphine and like coke and all kind of stuff inside our medicines before. But I know people abused it back then, but it wasn't like abused. Like, I think it's something very different going on. I mean, I don't read the kind of crime levels that we have today in the older times back in the turn of the 1900s. You don't see that, you know. Although the same substances were available, I think society was structured a little bit differently, and you know, the usage of substances was a little bit different. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to start off with the unlock schedule here. Since we're talking about the IPO with SpaceX, all the people who got in really early, and I'm talking about, since this company is now worth $2 trillion, those ones that got in when it was worth far less are looking at 10, 20, 100, 1,000 times gain on their stocks after this IPO. Problem is they can't sell them until there's an unlock period, which the biggest unlock is August 11th. And you can see how it kind of stair steps down. So 25% of the biggest money on the planet gets to sell all their shares coming up August 11th. Now, what's interesting is if you look, Ransom, you'll see that other slide that had all the dots on it, and that is the Federal Reserve's meeting coming up. Now, we just had an FOMC meeting, and that's why all the markets have crashed in this last 7 days, is because they weren't expecting the interest rates to be like non-negotiable, and Warsh talking about we're going to raise the rates and we're going to do whatever we need to do. People were not expecting that kind of talk. They were expecting like, yeah, we can lower them if we need to. But he was all like, hell no, we're going to raise them if we need to, and it's going to be on demand. And where does that on-demand understanding of our society come from and our economy? Well, they started those 5 task forces. Now, those 5 task forces are all going to be AI-driven. Now, currently, this new Fed chairman can't come out and cut rates because he'll just be like, well, you're just a Trump bootlicker. That's why you cut rates, because Trump wants to cut interest rates to try to bring the economy. This new guy's like, no, we're going to go by the data now, and we're not going to tell you in the future what we're going to do. We're just going to do it quarter by quarter. And we're starting all these new 5 different think tanks that are going to use AI to determine and tell us what the market's doing, and then we can adjust literally on the fly every 3 months. We're no longer going to tell you 2 years out what we're going to do with our interest rates. We're going to go quarter by quarter based on the new AI that we're setting up in these 5 different new departments that we're creating here, which right now, give it 6 months and they'll be like, oh, the data shows we can cut rates now. So just hold on. So that June 16th and 17th caught a lot of people off guard. So that's why the markets have fallen tremendously. But they find this anyway, that after these FOMC meetings, generally, the stock market falls for 7 to 10 days. Now, when's the next meeting? July 28th and 29th. This brings us right to the end of the year, or the end of the month there, right into August. But what happens, that starts to go down. What they're predicting is going to be another downtrend. And then what happens at the same time? Those shares unlock. Now, if I was a guy who got SpaceX shares at $3 and it's selling at 150, I need that liquidity, like all that money going in for the average person who got in at $160 and didn't get out at 120. You were their exit strategy. You gave them the money you basically transferred your money to an oligarch somewhere, and you're back down to pretty much, you're under. The opening price was $160 that day, and it's down at $153 today. So you've already lost money if you held that IPO through today. Will it like rightly go back down and then come back up like Ransom said? Oh, in the future, but not now, not for months and months and months from now. So now we got these two things heading down at the same time. The Federal Reserve meetings, July 28, 29, supposed to draw the stock market down 7 to 10 days anyway, which overlaps on that August 11th window. Now this SpaceX IPO is a tremendous amount of weight on that whole index now. So Ransom, can you go to the Russell chart, the black one with the stock market chart on it? Yeah, that one. So this is the Russell 2000, and once it comes past its 50-day moving average and it comes into this, well, wedge, which by the way are super difficult if you're people who read charts. The wedge is the most difficult one to interpret because you just really don't know which way it's going to go. Most traders will wait until 1 or 2 candles after it breaks out before they decide which trade to take on it, because this is the super most difficult chart to read, the wedges. But if we look back in the past, after it breaks out of the wedge, when it comes past the 50-day moving average, generally it goes down. And you notice that even where the wedge wasn't formed and those 2 other subsequent tops in between the 2 yellow triangle wedge lines that are drawn there for you, once it gets above the 50-day, it generally drops back down. You see it 3 times up to now, and we're at that wedge again, and it's come above the 50-day. So just as generality in statistics, you'd probably say there's a very good chance, higher than 50%, that this is going to go to the downside within another couple of weeks here. This is a weekly chart. So if you bring it out a couple more ticks until it breaks that wedge, that's probably 2 more weeks. It might even drop down a little bit and really hit that corner before it makes its move. So then if you do take this into consideration and this Russell 2000 might drop to the downside, now we got all those things. The FOMC meeting is going to take the stock market down. This Russell looks like in its longer term charts, it's going to go down. You got the sellout of all the IPO people coming on the 11th. And then what happens between then and now? Well, July 8th, every stock, bond, ETF, and financial product in America is going to start being tested on Stellar Lumen's network through the DTCC, which if you ever bought a stock or bond or you know anything ever in America financial, it's gone through this to be moved from one place to another. That's called clearing. Like Ransom bought a stock and they're going to hold his money and the company and make sure his money clears. Then once it's cleared, they're holding the stock and then they'll transfer it over into Ransom's name. That's called clearing, and that's what the DTCC does. So Stellar Lumens, in my opinion here, would be one of the only things that looks like it's going to be in an uptrend. And can you go back to that slide where the lady is right there? Yeah, okay. So this is on CNBC. There's almost an unthinkable statement here. CNBC just admitted AI demand is falling. And that's why Anthropic and OpenAI are rushing to go public. Okay, go to the next slide over there where the dates are of where these rushing to go publics are. It was, go back, yeah, right there it is. At the very end of 2026. They're not going public now, which means that if there is a correction, and not a crash, but a very deep correction of our stock markets from August all the way until, say, September, or let's say October, November, look at the timelines for then the Anthropic and the OpenAI IPOs, October 2026 to mid to late December 26. That would allow all this craziness to clear out. All the people would have pulled their money back in, all these billionaires that would be selling into the FOMO here of a crash. And then everything would have crashed and stabilized. And the regular 4-year cycle bottom for crypto is supposed to occur during this time as well, somewhere around like, say, October, November 2026. Then everything could settle. And what are you going to do? You're going to start chasing the thing that's going to make you money because you just lost so much money. So here comes the OpenAI and the Anthropic IPOs. Oh, they're going to be up 10, 20, 30% again, Ransom. Where would you want to put your money? Oh, Bitcoin's going to start running again too, because it's the bottom of the cycle. If they can milk everybody out at this point, the liquidity comes back in because it's been all siphoned off of mom and pop street. If you're at the bottom and you just lost a bunch of money, you're going to want to make money again. So what are you going to do? You're going to pop in on the ones, AI, that's the trade, man. That was the one that, oh, it's going to make another 20%.
Right.
And people are going to flood their money back into these things once more. And cryptocurrency could be hot again too with Bitcoin. If it starts flowing, where are you going to put your money? In an S&P index that's not moving? It's the same thing now. Bitcoin's not moving on purpose, so you put your money into these AI stocks. But once all this falls through and settles in the dust, again, somewhere around October, November, when everything's back flat again and there's really nowhere to put money because it's just all the complete market just melted down for the last 2 months, people are going to be looking and go, wait, what's the first things that are the spring roots that are coming back out again? Oh, it's the Anthropic AI or the Anthropic IPO. It's the ChatGPT OpenAI IPO. Oh, Bitcoin's getting hot again. Crypto's starting to take off, and watch the swing of the pendulum. Because what I kept telling you, the biggest money on earth moves in cycles. They don't move on days or weeks. They move in a planned cycle transition. And the transition is right now. Another thing that matches up with this, the DTCC and Stellar start to do their testing on July 8th, but they go into full 100% global usage of this tokenized stock system November of 2026. Isn't that interesting how it all starts to flow back up in the same river again after all the liquidity has been pulled out? So it's not financial advice, but there's too many things showing you on these dates of possible effects that could make it decline, the overall markets. And then at the bottom of that, all pointing to right around, like, say, October, November of this year, the entire system is switching. The entire global monetary system, Bank for International Settlements, World Bank, they're all moving to this tokenized stock system. That's not a movement of a week or a month. This is a movement to an entirely new financial system. But you would want to kind of down near the bottom before you start. It would be very difficult to implement this system at the top of every single stock market at the highest valuations ever in human history across everything on the planet right now. You would crash it. And I think they would like to test during a crash is my own. If you're going to roll out technology for the first time in tokenized assets, would you want to roll it out at only on an up market where it's at the top of the market where everything's smooth, or would you want to test this in like tremendous stress conditions of like an incredible market sell-off that we haven't seen since the 1929 era? I would do that. I would want to test it try to break it at the most possible discombobulation and crashing conditions ever on a market. That's what I would want to test this in. Because it works going up. That's easy. What happens when the unwind comes and the flywheel starts to spin in a different direction? July 8th is when this goes live for the test. That's very close, not even a month away, and then it starts to roll into this whole unlock period. Because in the first month, they're going to tweak out a few things. They'll really wire it down. But then once they get into a downtrend, they can test the new system. If it works when the market's crashing. And then after it's all crashed, their AI is going to run through everything, tweak it, and then they will have the upside and the downside wired in on how this mechanism works with this new tokenized delivery and payment system running on stellar lumens. Then we're at the bottom, and then the new system starts. So I don't know how far and deep the crash needs to come or the drawdown to put this in, but I got November 15th is the new bull start. So I have it right in the middle of November for all this to play out. So between August 11th, near start date. So again, not financial advice. I'm just saying, look in the terms of trends. Beginning of August, things with all these indicators showing and the market could go down, all overlapping on each other. And we're at the highest ever in stock markets ever in human history. It's got to come down at some time. It's like, there's never a market that's gone up forever and ever and ever, never came down. All the way the drawdowns through the full DTCC launch at the end of October and the 1st of November. I think I'm seeing an overlaying pattern here. Bank for International Settlements told us in their documents as well that this was going to be something to look for, that the resetting system was going to have new rules and they were going to test it in both directions before they took it live. Not my words, their words. Bank for International Settlements, SELA, S-C-L-A, Project SELA. You can find all this information for free. They put all the PDFs out there. You can do your own research. You can find it. It's all available for the public. Just like Ransom said, all these crackers are out there. These breadcrumbs are around. They're telling us what they're going to do. They've been doing it through popular media for most people who just watch movies and TV. But for those of you who want to dive into finance reports from World Bank and this sort of thing, and IMF and Bank for International Settlement, BIS, they also put everything out there for you to see. They didn't test this system on the way down yet, but they need to roll it out live after they tested both directions. And it's going to be the new global financial settlement system. So for me, before it goes live, they need to get a drawdown on it just to test it. So, put that in, and then that's my complete puzzle there for you. So I don't know if it makes sense, Ransom, or too many disconnected parts I'm trying to put together in a Radio Shack format here to.
No, I totally get.
What do you think?
I totally get what you're saying about that. And think about this: when you're really thinking about the ups and downs of these companies, you have to take into account on stated plan goals for their company. So you were mentioning this 2027 date when they can unlock and sell their shares, but I don't really think that those people are going to be selling those shares. And this is kind of why. If you just start looking at their plans, what they're going to be doing, so we're already here at 2026. So if you skip down to Starlink and connectivity, massive expansion using Starship for larger V3 satellites, up to 60 per launch. And then you got down here V2 mini continuation, next gen V3 broadband, and V2 mobile 5G capable in 2027. So when you start looking at the companies, you can tell that they weren't even really planning on getting started upgrading the company of SpaceX till shortly after 2027. This is when they're going to be doing stuff. So you're going to be seeing all of that stock going down and then it going right back up right after this stuff. So if you have some of that really, if you're one of those people that got the stock from the company, there would be you would be an idiot to sell that. You would hold on to that to like 2040, 2050. See what you got then, if it's still around. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but institutions don't play like that. They just find the liquidity zone and they dump it or pull it. They're not attached to anything ever. Right. The institutions, those are the big money. Like me and Ransom think like individuals. Well, yeah, I would hold that, got it at a good price. I may go down, might go back up. But for us, we can get loans against that stuff. So, like let's say Ransom's got 1,000 shares of SpaceX there. He's sitting on 160 grand right now. He can take out a loan against those shares and he never has to sell them and to get a preferential rate. And then, pay that back. And that's what wealthy people do is they get loans against their assets.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about this, if you have $10,000 in the bank and you borrow almost that amount because they'll loan it to you because you have it in the bank. So you take that 10,000, you put that 10,000 back into the account, and then you go to another bank and you borrow 20,000. Now on the 20,000 that you have, you put that money back into that account. You now have 40,000, and at some point the payments are going to be below the interest that you're gaining on the money. So that's how really rich people stay rich. They never spend their own money. They only loan against their own money, which allows their net profit to just increase each year because they're only paying the interest on these loans that they get. Now, when you start thinking about the big players, they got, several $1 million in the bank, then they borrow more millions. Now they got more millions. This is how people become billionaires. They never spend any of their own money.
Yeah, because think about that. So SpaceX be at 150 right now. Ransom's got 1,000 shares, got 150 grand. He took out a $30,000 loan for some home improvement or something. The time frames we're talking about here is only about a year or so before it starts to go back up, even under. So can you get a year of interest-free money? Of course you could. Because if that goes from say 150 and then next year it's at 250, for you to pay back the loan, you could get a new loan off what the increase was on that extra, $100,000 and pay off the old loan and get a whole new one. And that's just the way and the longer you can wait on that, and you just got time.
And and this brings up, I didn't get to watch the whole thing, but I watched probably 75% of it, of one of your last episodes on ADAPT 2030, where you were talking about how governments are trying to set up taxing things that you haven't even sold yet, or profits you haven't even made yet. So stuff that's still in limbo, or things you haven't even sold or made a profit off of, they're trying to price and then tax based on their pricing of what you have. Is that a fair layout of it?
Yeah, this is in the Netherlands. It's starting now. They're starting in the Netherlands first because it's such a small population. They started with the farmers there too, to confiscate farms. It's interesting how both the Netherlands has been done for the farm confiscation test, and now they're starting with it's called unrealized capital gains taxes. So again, Ransom's got $500,000 house, and his house went up to $700,000, and he's got $200,000 of profit. Now he didn't sell that residence yet, but he's got $200,000 on the books. What they're going to do in the Netherlands is say, you owe us, let's say 35% of that is a capital gains tax. You owe us $70,000 due next year. Well, wait, I didn't sell the house yet. Doesn't matter. It shows that you owe us $70,000 capital gains tax unrealized. So what's the possibility? I know your house is big and everything, but where do you come up with 70 grand to pay a tax bill? Most people are going to have to sell something to do that. They're probably going to have to sell the whole house, because you have to think about it. Would you sell the whole house and take the capital gains drawdown on a $700,000 house at 35%, knowing the money's in your hand? Or would you pay the $70,000 to try to hold on to your property? And then if the property price drops, they don't give you that rebate. Like, they don't pay you back. Well, hey, my house just dropped 200,000. We're back to even again, 500,000. I want my 40,000 back. And they're like, no, it only works on the way up. And the only way you get that drawdown back is when you file your taxes. You're allowed to write that part off for 3 years against what you owe in taxes on certain tax categories. Like, let's say, for a simple example, like in America, you can't use that to write down on your Social Security and Medicaid. Yeah, those are automatic taxes that cannot be written down. I don't care how many deductions you have, whatever, how many things you can write off and itemize and expense away, amortize, whatever, depreciation, take it down. Social Security and Medicare are payable always. So that $40,000 is only good for 3 years, and it only writes off part of your tax. So most people are going to lose that money, because they're probably only going to use 5,000 or 7,000 of it each year. So they're only going to use probably 20 in the write-downs. And what happened to the other 20,000 that I took the hit for? Oh, it doesn't matter. Oh, wait, the house went back up. You got to pay again. So that's the whole thing. It's a zigzag pattern. It's not a one-time, I already paid the tax. It's a yearly assessment on the taxes, which gets into a whole bizarre world. Nobody really knows how it's going to work, but how can they tax you for things? And again, with the stocks, they already know through, your anti-money laundering, what stock accounts you have. If your account goes up, you're going to have to sell some stocks to cover your tax bill for things you didn't sell yet. And again, what's this going to do? If this really takes hold, this is going to cause a cascade of selling of all assets across the planet. No, because it's not going to stop in Europe. It's going to go everywhere in the world. Yeah, and nobody's going to want to hold anything, because what's the point of it? You're just going to get a tax bill every year. Okay, maybe it only went up 30,000 this year. Well, where's our 35% of that?
And I was upset this year. They upped my taxes for my property. It was like, I think $160. That tells you what kind of real estate I live by.
Wow, you're in more of a desert rural area, man. Like,
yeah,
you're not in the middle of New York City or something. Like, too, with my farm exemptions and everything, we hardly pay any taxes, because my whole land, those 20 acres behind the house, that's zoned as ag and forest. And I had to have a forestry assistant come out, and they did a whole assessment of, like, tree species, and I was limited to the certain amount of cut that I could do every year. But I was like, I'm not really planning on cutting any of it. And they're, oh, nature habitat, awesome. So I got the green zone on the back property, which is partially, it was like 6 acres of field on hills. It's not like prime flat, ag land. And then the rest of it's forest, which I'm not really harvesting. But my tax bill on that's almost nothing either, because it's a protected zone. So you can get great land with no tax, provided that it's in a zone or how you get a zone correctly. Don't think you need to pay $5,000 for taxes on, like my parents, they live in a city, their tax bill is ridiculous. Every year they're paying. I'm like, you could have paid your house off already. You lived here like, 25 years, and the money you paid there is more than you paid for your house. Forget the interest on the loans. Just the property taxes would have been more than their house already.
That's why I always thought, if I became a super duper millionaire, that I would go out into farm country, and you know how you always see those old barns that are real gray and old wood, they're about falling in and everything, and I'd buy all that wood, I'd build me a mansion and cover it with that crap on the outside where it looks like a barn that's fallen in. You ever seen that movie Coming to America? You know how that guy where he hooked up the apartment and then the landlord wanted to move in because it was better than his place. That's what it'd be like. You just have it, super nice in the inside, but on the outside, it looks like one of those rundown farmhouses that's about to collapse. And then, when the tax assessor comes over, they're like, oh, God.
Well, people are doing that ransom. That is the new chic. Like there's a lot of fallen down barns around, at least in East Tennessee where I'm at. Companies are coming in and buying that wood because it's really hard to find that, like the squares.
Seasoned, yeah.
Yeah, no, you can't find like 20-inch beams anymore. I mean, it's like really impossible. Or, this kind of wood that was cut 100, 150 years ago, like you can't find that anymore. So people come in and they buy all that wood and then they refurb it. They cut off the dead ends and then they treat it and do all that stuff. And then they just use it as real wood again. They put it on people's floors. It's super. I've seen people do this with shipwrecks too. I knew this billionaire, went over to his house. He had a shipwreck floor. Because you went in, the floor looked super, super different. I'm like, what is this floor? He's like, oh, it's from a shipwreck. Wow. He actually brought a ship up, and it hadn't decayed any of the wood because it was so deep. And then that floor was resurfaced, and you could tell it was like an aged wood floor. This is the new chic thing where people are coming in and they're starting to take all the old stuff, refurbish it. So there's actually a line of people looking for these old barns to tear them down, move them. And a lot of people just buy it for the beams only and the outer wood you're talking about. They just want the inner beams, because to have an inner beam barn, wood frame, you can't, I don't care if you have the money, you can't find that anymore. Like nature doesn't provide that size of trees anymore. Maybe in the Amazon rainforest, but it's not going to have that same 100-year aging or 150-year aging on it. Right. Where it's already, all the moisture is gone. It's completely cured. Like that shit ain't going, and it doesn't burn. It's so dense, And the Amish guys, they always burn the outside of it anyway to like get it so it doesn't burn if it was going to burn.
I just recently actually, they were going to take it to the dump. I found I think that's about 20 pallets of tongue and groove, old wood flooring. And it's, it's really seasoned because it was sitting out in the sun, but it's all solid wood still that links together real nice. And I know that's worth some good money right there. Just as is, it looks like a pile of garbage, but to the right person, they're like, "Oh wow, they can do the whole house." Why would they throw that
away? Do you think anyway?
Someone paid someone to come clear the land, and they don't care what they're taking. They just looks like junk to them, so they haul it off to the dump. I'm telling you, the old world is being thrown away, and half of the people throwing it away don't even know what they're tossing. It's just sad, very sad thing.
I remember looking at this piece of property. I didn't buy it, but it had this old ass house on it but they had these cedar shingles all up and down the side of this house, cedar shingles. And they were all intact in pretty good shape because it was like under a tree grove. And it was just an extra house that they had on the property. But the cedar shingles, and I was looking into it, like original cedar shingles from the 1970s, very little wear and tear. But I mean, those things are really hard to find. And, you're looking at that and you go, man, that's like some big money just laying out here.
Right.
Yeah, like things like that. You would not think that you would go, oh, look at those old crappy things. And that's not modern. Just rip those, just burn those things. They're not modern. What? Oh, yeah, and I might add in, the reason I gave you this chart here, The super El Ninos coming in on top of all this with the rising food prices into the stock market decline, possibly based on all those factors. But what I'm noticing here too is there's kind of a disconnect between what is happening normally with the sunspot cycle and the sunspot or the actual solar cycle itself, and when we get these really heavy El Ninos or La Ninas, and where we sit in the solar cycle currently. Like what you'll notice is a lot of them are happening at midpoint and beyond into the drawdown of the lowest where we come into solar minimum. If you look at the other solar, if you look at the ongoing monthly sunspot count, you can see where we sit on that. We shouldn't be having this big of a solar max, or we shouldn't El Nino based on the solar activity where we sit in the 11-year solar cycle. Something's off by half of a solar cycle here. So I sent you that picture already. It was the, yeah, that's the forecast. So we need to draw it down all the way till it comes into the very bottom there before we should get something on the exceptional side of the El Ninos. But that's still at like around 2030. So we're at midpoint rare in itself to be this super El Nino. It's supposed to be the strongest one since 1877. Yeah, there's our solar cycle. It should, if you were going to be realistically looking at it, you got to look at the El Ninos that occurred, say 2019 or so into 2020, drawing down into that low. So if you're trying to just use statistical analysis on generally things fall in the pattern. When you get solar low, you get stronger winters. When you're at solar maximum, generally get more violent thunderstorms and tornadic activity. There's just more energy in the system. Like those are just low-hanging fruit to choose and think about. Less activity, less storms, less hurricanes. It's all electric driven. So when you look at solar maximum, solar minimum, different things are occurring because there's different, you know, electrical feed into the whole global electric circuit here.
Yeah.
But for such a maximum, crazy, unbelievable El Nino to occur at this point is kind of just doesn't match so well. Something's off here.
Well, I don't know if this is
it's a data point. That's all I'm saying.
I don't know if this really has to do with this pattern, but here in 2020, I already was really studying the sunspots this year because we were talking about the gravitational births or the likelihood that you might have a longer lifespan if you were born in a year or your gestation was in a year with really low sunspots. So I just had my children, my two recent children right here within this low spot period. But at the same time, it was bone dry here in New Mexico. We didn't get any rain. It was triple digits, hot. And as a comparison, when you get over here to 2025, last year, my entire yard was flooded repeatedly to the point where I didn't even have any topsoil, and I was starting to get concerned about the foundation blocks on my home because it kept repeatedly coming in. So like, I mean, and that's just for me in this local area though, but I could just see a correlation between dry and super wet right here. At least where I'm at specifically.
Well, that's just moving of jet streams. That's all simple. Like if you're doing the correlation like this, you can see jet streams move slightly, not like hemisphere movements, but they move slightly, a few hundred miles based on these solar activity movements. And I'm sure if we went back into some of the really incredibly highest solar activity periods, like in the 1950s or whatnot, that you would see probably your flood would have been, you know, the record floods might have been occurring around that time.
And when was Tonga?
Hunga Tonga, that was
2022.
Right. Coming off of that solar minimum coming into that. And then the beginning of the year of 2022.
Well, when you're talking about things off, I mean, just think about this whole last cycle here. We're looking at that bump. This has, what was it, like 14% to 17% increased moisture in the atmosphere during this period. So it would be a little off from the pattern from the previous dips and the troughs in the graph there. It'd be off this year specifically, I mean, because of the moisture, the added moisture, and then you take into account the solar cycle itself. Somebody said inflated.
Yeah, I'm looking if we can go to the site direct. They have a few more graphics there. So I'll take you up to it's sidc.be. And let's see, we got data products.
Oh, you got it? All right.
Yeah, I do here, graphics.
Let me get this.
Let me walk you through how to go this. Anybody who wants to go take a look at this, let me walk you through on how to do this. Because it's important that we share this information on how to find it too. It's not just that it's there. Okay, so you're going to go to, they call it SILSO. That's a short name for Sunspot Index Long-Term Solar Observations. And the address there is sidc.be. Now, once you come to the homepage, it'll redirect you over here. So what you're going down, if you come to the homepage, if you go to data, this is all like Excel spreadsheets and different kind of, if you're able to plug data in and create your own charts, you want to go for this first, but I'm not like that. I'm a lazy guy. So I go into the graphics. Second one down where it says products, just come into the graphics here. And it should pop up. There we go. And that's where I got that chart from just yesterday, was this sunspot moving average here. And if we do look out at the last solar cycles here, there you go. Where do you think the most rainfall would be? So Ransom, I'd ask you if you have any way to look in the late 1950s around your area. If you're telling me that, then the biggest floods would have occurred at this point here in 1957 or something.
In the 90s, we were
in
just
the
talking.
90s. Okay, here we go. Here's another tremendous spike. That's when also global temperature records were set
Right.
at the same time. So if you look at another way, and then another way to look at that, if you want to try to match these two data sets, you want to go to drroyspencer.com, and he has the monthly totals for you coming on. I think it's UAH, University of Huntsville. And yeah, he's using, let me change the chart here, switch to this.
Yeah, this is exactly that period they were talking about in the chat last time we were on air. About people said they remembered living in Las Cruces and seeing the Rio Grande completely full of water year round. That was right in that time period where we were getting a lot of rain. It was hot all the way into December and January, 90-degree temperatures.
Yeah, so you can see this one pretty cleanly. Yeah, and you'll follow this. Okay. So when you're looking at the solar maximums, generally it's these peaks here when you're looking at this global temperatures. So if we look at 97 and 98 and we come back to, if we come back in on the, and we go 1997, 98, oh, what was coming off of this dropping down here? But in the 1990s, we had those spikes. Let me share this tab again instead. 2016 was the high for this temperature spike there. Let's come back down here and take 2016. Yeah, it's just right around here on the trend. That was a double. Well, they're all doubles usually, but notice also something that's a little bit different on this sunspot cycle here. Almost every one of these is a double. And the way John Casey was presenting the information, that generally you'll have the larger bump and then the smaller, you'll have the smaller or the larger peak first, followed by a smaller peak on a double peak. And the last time we saw something that had a single peak like this was, well, back in the 1950s. But he was trying to talk about solar rotations and how the solar grand minima was starting to onset by using the single largest peak first, preceding his largest peak, followed by a smaller peak. And once he saw this smaller peak first, larger peak second, he was anticipating that this solar cycle, followed by the second one showing the same wave, would have been our solar minimum starting here, grand solar minima. But it didn't turn out to be as much. So we're starting to see this peak here. Where does it take us? I'm not sure, but it's sort of a single peak. We barely even had a first peak. It just seemed, but the very same look at it happened around in the 50s right here when we got up 350 sunspots. So just pointing that out there for you. We're at Dr. Roy, here we go. So where are we going to go on this temperature chart here, do you think? And you start to look at some of this, it doesn't overlap exactly on it, like the 1998 peak. Let's go back to 1987, 1988, and then, what was happening at that point, 1997, 98, kind of right up here, again, near a solar maximum temperatures. The one deviation was right here, mid-cycle, but bringing it back to here, sharing this one. So 2024 and 25, we had that spike up because that was Hunga Tonga moisture driving this one up here. So that was all vapor based because, water vapor is the biggest greenhouse gas. I didn't know it was going to be that low in the atmosphere to disrupt. I thought it was a higher water vapor eruption. That would have been more effects higher in the atmosphere. It's cooling higher in the atmosphere, but it's warmer lower in the atmosphere. So we got this at 2024, but when you come on the sunspot cycle, it does kind of get at that peak right there as well. We're about midway through. So that one matches kind of what we saw with the heating, added into, again, the Hunga Tonga eruption. So I guess that's what I got for you there, man. I just, you can find this data pretty easily. And where does it lead us into with earthquakes then?
Yeah, that's where I was going to go next. Because they're saying that the San Andreas fault has the highest stress levels in 1,000 years, but on a geologic scale, that's really not that much.
Oh, that's nothing.
And it's hard to estimate these things. However, the question is if we did get a 7, 8, or 9 on the west coast of the U.S., depending on where it's at, you could have it on the Cascadia subduction zone up there, which would take out Portland and those upper cities down there. But if we had a major one down around L.A. or even San Francisco, it would put out, talk about disruption in supply chains. Those are some of our biggest ports that take in all of the goods from anywhere else. And this would mean that for a short time, if there was one, I would think that it would completely cripple the U.S. as far as, money situation and all that. If you're looking in Venezuela right now, I feel so bad for those people. Since Chavez, since they went socialist with Chavez, they've just been having bad luck after bad luck after bad luck after bad luck. And now to top it off with a double 7-point something, earthquake that basically knocked a lot of stuff down. So the estimates right now.
Is there a map there with this? Is this stress San Andreas fault? Is there a map on that article?
Let's see here. Well, there's a picture of it.
No map. It's just like a cheesy one. I want to know where their baseline is. Like, how do they even know where to start to then calibrate off of what's the zero mark?
Here's the study right here.
How do they know 1,000 years ago? I mean, where's their base level to even know what zero is to measure from that point above or below the line?
Let's see here. 1,000 years of earthquake history here in this paper from the University of Hawaii. So I guess that's what they're basing it off of. And the biggest one I know of, like, what was that? 1918, or was it 19? Yeah, I think. Was it 18? I think it was. Or no, 1908.
For there.
For San
Francisco.
Francisco.
Fault was, again, in the early 1800s.
Yeah, but it is a real question. I mean, when we're looking at, we always get to see these on TV, right? Like a few years ago, it was Turkey. We've seen Haiti. I mean, you can go on and on. Mexico City basically has got lucky despite having really big earthquakes in a spot that you would think that everything would fall down. So, one of those areas would totally put a whole portion of the map out. So say we had a good 8 in Mexico City right now, and they had significant damage on the scale that I've been watching in Venezuela, which I think they have, what they're saying is they're estimating it's going to be about 10,000 people dead and 20 or 30,000 missing. Right now, I think the last one I saw, it was still barely in the 50s as far as victims. But they're digging everybody out. They're digging dogs out. I was watching them all day. It was like more dogs getting rescued than people for some reason, or at least on the feeds I was seeing. But they're pulling kids out. I saw a video. I showed it actually at the beginning of the show where this old man, his wife obviously couldn't walk. She had a walker, so she wasn't going nowhere, and he was too old to pick her up. So he just went and stood by her, waiting it out. And what would the U.S. really do if the lights go out on the West Coast? And it's not just, watching it on the news and watching all the fires and all of that stuff that's going to happen. We're really talking about a major inflection of poverty that will follow right after that. California has a really big economy. It's already on the ropes right now. from several other, disasters, mismanagement, communism, whatever you want to call it. If that were to happen, though, you would think that there would be several major ports out, like from San Francisco, LA, San Diego, all out of commission. I mean, that would be like half of the US just out of commission immediately.
Well, if there was another New Madrid earthquake, I was looking up the details just to make sure I had them right. The 7.0 and then an 8.8 in February 1812. Now, in today's world, it would knock every bridge down on the Mississippi River.
Right.
Or greatly damage them to the point you just couldn't cross them until they did engineering and structural inspections, that sort of thing. So talk about all the goods moving across America, all the rail lines would be down. There would be no vehicles going across those bridges. So like there'd be an instant cutoff of everything across the US as well. Now, how long would it take to inspect the bridges? Weeks, if not months. And then if there were damage, you know how slow things work in America to get any kind of, they'd have to do like a Manhattan Project construction thing. Because of the way it's done now, where it takes 3 years to complete 2 miles of road, that's just not going to work. It'd have to be done in months. Because the entire economy of America would be dependent on having the bridges across the Mississippi, along with the rail lines, functioning. So either way, like we got these two known zones that have occurred that devastated America in their times even. And I'm wondering, the lock system, how that would be affected, these sort of things.
Right.
So even river transport would be, greatly moved. So we got the San Francisco quake. If we were to have another one that large as we did, was that 1905 or somewhere?
Yeah.
We don't come back from that one for decades, right? And then if the New Madrid fault zone, if we had an 8.8 along there, I don't think our modern buildings would stand up anyway, even though they have earthquake engineering into them. I don't think most of our stuff would survive an 8.8.
No, you would see cities like Memphis, Nashville, stuff like that, feeling effects of it that far away if we had something like back then. Really, they had mostly, for the most part, just one-story buildings that took the brunt of that. Now we're talking, thousands and thousands of towns with different buildings, and none of them are built to withstand an earthquake. None of them.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, and living in Knoxville, before, I saw a couple of those really old brick buildings from the late 1800s. Because of that earthquake, their earthquake prevention techniques back then was they had this giant rod that went across the building, and then they drilled a hole through the bricks onto the outside of the building, and they put these big discs. These things must have been like 10-foot circumference discs made of metal, and then they pulled the building in on its side, so it had two like 10-foot circumference discs in two different places along the building to like hold it, so if it shook, the walls just wouldn't fall out on themselves. And that was the best earthquake technology they had in the late 1800s.
Yeah, just looking at this map right here, you can see all that activity right there north of Memphis. These are mostly all just ones, twos, things like that, but it shows you the center of where this thing might happen right here. And, I've read lots of papers that's saying this is way overdue as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, with this big movement here, very close to us, like those plates unlocking the way they did, that's going to create stress elsewhere.
Yeah.
Where's that new stress where'd that new stress get pushed to is the next question to ask. Okay, this event, terrible as it happened, but you need to start thinking about that unlocked, but where did it push and create the next friction zone?
Oh, yeah. You know what? You're right. I forgot to, I was going to download that. I saw it was basically a GIF that showed the shock waves coming from Venezuela, and it appeared that's what triggered the other earthquakes. We had a 5.9 in San Francisco. I think there was a upgraded from a 6.9 to a 7 in Japan, and then several more.
There's a couple 4s over here in Taiwan too. Like that whole zone over here has been shaken.
Let's see. Let's look over.
We had the typhoons over here too. Electrically, those typhoons are connected. So we got 2 typhoons that are going to be joining just over southern Japan around Honshu Island. Two typhoons normally don't join together. Normally they're repelled. But these are actually going to join together into, it's not going to become a super typhoon because generally they collapse on themselves on the eye walls. But to have 2 typhoons collapse in on each other, that's another rarity that's occurring right this week.
Looks tasty over there. Oh, yeah, I took it off. I was showing it. Sorry.
Yeah,
It's
that's what I was
obviously
wondering.
quite active over here too. I mean,
Yeah, so I got the JMA feed up here for the typhoon. Let me see if I can share this screen out for you. You see where these two are going to connect right here. So amongst all the other strange things occurring in our world, beyond the heat wave and everything else, this is the first typhoon down here. The one that just passed and just like soaked us with rain, 14 inches of rain in the last 2 days, was one of the outer bands that circled back over Taiwan. It didn't even come on shore. As far as, it's to the west here, the islands to the west. It came up, and this is where it's coming. So these two typhoons are going to join right here in southern Honshu. Again, a little bit rare, a little bit not normal. And once they connect in together, then they're going to ride together and become one typhoon as they go out. So again, this is kind of unusual. You don't see it every day. So
yeah, I was watching that those typhoon winds on that big tall building with all the rainbow lights. That was really crazy. I think that was in Taiwan. I'm pretty sure.
yeah, I was going to try to draw you up a map, but I couldn't do it fast enough. Taiwan weather. See how fast I can do this here. Well, no, it's
80 degrees.
there. You go. Taiwan Central. Come on, it's not working fast enough. Come on. And then we want to go up to into the weather here, and then we want to come into the East Asia satellite. There we go. So see how Taiwan's totally covered from the typhoon spinning. That was all the remnants that were left behind as this thing. See, they're not even really that well formed typhoons. They're very low on the scale anyway, but they're about to form up. This low right here is what we're looking on the map, along with this one here. So these two are going to grab in on themselves here somewhere. So anyway, that's another strange anomaly that's occurring. So, amongst others, the chance that two typhoons combine in on themselves is a rare event, in addition to all the other rare events we're having on the planet. So now you're starting to layer, like, something significant has happened. And then if you look across the world, stock markets, gold and silver down, stock markets down, crypto's down, bonds are down. Like, everything also in unison across, like, the financial space and how humans operate with money is down. And generally they find that's electrical connected, because it's usually rides on top of the solar cycles on the highs and the lows of the solar maximum, solar minimum. Then we had all this incredible earthquake activity, these typhoons coming together, that's electrical. You got the heat dome stalling over Europe, that's electrical. So everything that we're seeing across the entire sphere of our world, literally our planet, something electrically has been disrupted this week, and we're starting to see it play out everywhere in every genre of our civilization all at the same time. So I appreciate you joining. I already see we're coming to the end of the hour here. Civilizationcycle.com. Put your email in there. I'll be happy to get you the show notes, 10 important items that we talked about tonight, with some graphs and some slides so you can remember what we talked about. Also, buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle. Support us over there, buy us a double espresso, and also click on those links below to support our sponsors, because they support us. Until next week, thanks for your time. Bye for now.